Welcome to Undrafted Hockey Fan. I am Brad. Today we are knocking out some NHL news, trades, rumors, all that good stuff. So let's just jump right into it. And if you haven't already, hit like, subscribe. Really appreciate it. It all helps little subscribers like me, little witty subscribers like me. So I appreciate it. You're gonna get a lot of personality if you're a first time listener. So let's just jump right into it. So it just happened today. We got a Frank Vatrano extension already. So which I thought was really interesting because Frank Vatrano was one of those guys that was talked about being traded last year. Let me pull up his contract. He ended up getting wherever he at. Frank Vatrano, $3 million for 3 years. I apologize. 3 years, $4.57 million per year. But this is the interesting part. This is one of the biggest deferred contracts we've ever seen in the NHL. So going to his contract, I'm going to pull it up on Puckpedia. If you haven't used Puckpedia before, it is a phenomenal resource, and I highly suggest it. So and I'm gonna read off of my phone because this is actually a great breakdown. If you don't follow Frank Saravalli, he has a great breakdown of this on the web. Oh no, sorry, Frank Saravalli. It's pure LeBron. So I'm going to read this right off of his Twitter account because this is the reason why they're doing it this way. Because it's so interesting because really he got paid $18 million in this over 3 years. Like, well, you're like, Brad, $18 million, that's a cap hit of $6 million per year, for the Ducks. Why are they only getting hit with $4.57 million? That's like almost $1.5 million that they're saving on the cap every year. That doesn't seem right, bud. And so basically what I'm reading here, it says he will get paid $3 million a year in base salary, but then $9 million in deferred salary. So mind you, it's an $18 million contract, and half of it, $9 million of it, is going to get deferred. So basically for the first 3 years, he's going to get paid $3 million, $3 million, $3 million, $3 million, and that is what he'll collect. Starting 10 years from now in 2035. So he signs the contract in 2025. In 2035, he will be paid $900,000 a year for 10 years. So that's that other $9 million, right? 900,000 times 10 is an additional $9 million. And it does say because mind you, this guy is not very old. So he's 30 years old, right? So in 10 years, when he's 40, he's going to be still getting a paycheck, right? $900,000 a year for 10 years, right? So from 40 to 50 years old, he will still be getting a paycheck. Even though he's 40 years old, he's probably not going to be playing in the NHL. So this is good for him in the sense that he'll now have his contract earnings from is what he's made throughout this year. And then later it's like, oh, I'm going to just get a salary from 40 to 50. So that is beneficial for the team because they're saving on the cap hit now, right? So they can, and then it also helps him for later because speaking of Pierre LeBrun's tweet, he does he'll do the 10 years. And it's his plan is to live outside of California because he's in Anaheim right now, and his tax system at that point in retirement. The Ducks, meanwhile, benefit with deferred payments by having $4.57 million AAV, average annual value, instead of $6 million on the deal, like we talked about at the start. A creative way for both team and player to make it work, and perhaps show other players in future ways to stick handle around California's tax issue. So I think that is huge to talk about because one of the things we're talking about with the players and some of the advantages of some teams that have no tax states is that these players get, that you save money. So teams, this is actually a bigger topic than I thought I was going to talk about, which is cool. So you teams like anyone in Florida, so the Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning, the Vegas Golden Knights, no income tax state, and you have Nashville and then Dallas as well, right? And eventually Houston as well as a team going to be eventually there as well. These are no income tax states, right? So you're saving money year on year on taxes because you're able to keep it, right? So what you think about this is places like Canada, New York, California, these places have higher taxes. And so teams are like, if you make, I'm going to give you a rough estimate. If you want the same player in Florida, it's going to cost you about $8 million. It's a star player, right? $8 million a year, that's a good player, right? It's a point, it's point per game player, $8 million a year. If you were to sign in New York, California, you might need to pay that player like $9 to $10 million so that the guy will actually be able to keep the money that he's making, which isn't fair because every team has the same cap hit, right? So if you have let's say you have four guys making $8 million, let's say, right? In Florida, and instead you have to pay him $9 million in New York, well, that's, four players that making $9 million in New York, that is now $4 million that you're not able to spend on another guy who can play in your depth role, right? And so that makes it more difficult. So in this case, this is a huge step forward in the sense that these guys can now take the money later when they move out of the state and then, be able to collect on that. That's huge. I mean, to me, this is good because there's so many talks in the CBA about how, maybe teams in California or Canada should have a higher cap limit because you can only spend up to the cap hit, right? And so that would allow them to be able to bring in players because and pay more. They're already going to pay more money. So it's allows them that benefit. This is a huge workaround. I think this is very creative of the Anaheim Ducks and Pat Verbeek. Very smart, especially for guys who, like I said, maybe aren't going to stay in the state, right? And even if you decide to stay in the state, there's ways to work around the taxes. And let's be honest, you can make your room or your wherever you're staying at in Rhode Island or something like that, or Texas, and then go there 6 months a year, whatever it is. There's ways around this. So this is super interesting. It's super clever of the Anaheim Ducks and Vatrano for making these types of good moves. So let me know what your thoughts are. I think that was super smart. And again, I'm a big fan. I'm all about good cap creativity. I'm all about it. I think it was smart to get not HS. Who's the guy who just got it? Not Slavin. Goodness gracious, why can't I think of his name? Out in California, not California, Carolina. There was a contract. Why can't I think of his name? Seth Jarvis. Goodness gracious. Seth Jarvis did something similar, right? Where he ended up getting, instead of doing over his 8-year deal, he actually just had a 9th year where he's going to make an extra $400,000. So they save across the rest of the contract because they're paying him that little extra of that. This is a huge jump in the case. Instead of just $400,000, it's another $9 million outside when the guy's playing, which is huge. So I'm all about this. I'm all about creativity. And these teams got to get creative, right? Places like New York has the actual dollars to be able to do these kind of things, but they're limited by the cap space, right? So I think this is really creative. I think this is fun. I'm obsessed with this, and I'm so excited to see how these contracts go. Because you might see something like this when Edmonton had to pay Leon Draisaitl $14 million a year for 8 years, right? Well, maybe they're like, hey, what if you paid him over 16 years, right? That might be that's how you save on cap, right? Well, now you pay him $7 million over 16 years. We'll make hell, buddy, we're good. We're set, right? And then when he retires, he says to move on. He can take his money and now he can save it, right? So I think this is huge. I think it's a huge. Connor McDavid might be using this. Austin Matthews might be using this. When his 4-year deal is up. This is very exciting. I'm a big cap guy, so that's I think it's just the most fun thing in the world. So. Let's just jump into the next piece of news, though. We have Arthur Kaliyev has been put on waivers. So this is a first-round draft pick of the LA Kings. He did sign, I believe he signed a 3-year deal as well at about $1 million a piece for 3 years going to Arthur Kaliyev. No, I lied. I apologize. He is actually, so he's making $825,000. So he's got a 1-year contract for Arthur Kaliyev. Not producing clearly the way they want him to right now. He's an RFA as well. I don't think has he even gotten in the lineup this year? He has not. He's not gotten in the lineup this year, which is really interesting. It looks like he did play with the Ontario Reign, 5 games, 2 points, 8 penalty minutes. So about a penalty every 4 of the 5 games, which is kind of crazy. So I'm really interested on what his status is. This is one of the guys that was drafted in 2019 in the second round. First round pick. He's a second round pick, but he was just outside the first round pick, 33rd overall. And never really popped like you thought he would. Mind you, in the OHL in 1920, he had 98 points, 57 games, and that is phenomenal, especially as a right winger. Just as a right winger, that's just good. And then looking at his AHL numbers, you got 31 points in 40 games in the 2021 season. Phenomenal. Love that. Love to see that. And at the World Juniors, by the way, 8 points in 7 games. Great. Phenomenal. Love that. And so we're seeing the LA Kings level, right, in the NHL, 21, 22, 27, 80, not great. Fine. It's about a point every 4 games, right? 28 points in 56 games, so half point per game player. Not too bad, right? And then 15 points, 51 games. And then I believe he ended up getting hurt as well. So that's kind of where he kind of threw him off his mojo and everything. He was activated off of IR on the 28th. He had a broken collarbone, it looks like. And so I'm curious. To my opinion, like I think someone's gonna pick him up, right? It's a guy that like he's something, right? He's a free player. You got to take on 825 grand. I mean, there's a ton of teams that can take on this guy's contract. We're looking at current cap space right now. I think almost every team besides like the Hurricanes, Oilers, Wild, and Islanders. So everyone's available. It has the cap space. You should keep him on your roster. So I don't see why someone doesn't take a flyer on him. Honestly, it would be Sharks, it'd be Chicago. You're looking at Preds might even try and put in a bid for him. Like just some team, I think he's absolutely going to get claimed. Because why not? Like he's only seen the LA Kings system, and maybe he decides to pop off. We saw Elliott Tolvanen, that's what it is, of the Nashville Predators. He was put on waivers, and it was one of the guys that they really didn't want to put on waivers, and they wanted him to get through. Seattle ends up claiming him, and he ends up popping off, putting up a ton of goals, and he's thriving over there now. And he got a big contract, or a pretty relatively large contract as well. Let's go check out Seattle real quick, and I'll show you what he ended up getting. Going to Elliott Tolvanen, he ended up getting a 3-year contract at $3.475 million. Phenomenal. And he was a first round pick. 2 years. Sorry. He got a 2-year deal at almost $7 million. Phenomenal. That's great. We love that. We love that for him. And he just come out of his entry, a shorter deal. Currently he's got 15 points in 40 games, but for waiver pickup, right? You're looking at almost a little. I mean, it's under half point per game right now. Putting about 10 minutes a night. So he's definitely lower in the lineup right now as like a third liner. But a guy that is putting up 4 points every 10 games, basically. So he's something. He's a guy, right? And Arthur Kaliyev is a guy. Try him out. Why not? Why not? I mean, it doesn't make sense why you would why not try him out? Have him move to a couple teams, see how it works. And then I honestly don't know why they didn't even get this guy for like a 4th round pick or something like that. Just try and get something for him. Just to move off, just to get something out of him instead of just waiving him. So moving on to the LA Kings, we're going on to the next rumors. The big rumors. I know you've heard about JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. I mean, there's huge heat between them. And I want to talk about them because both of them are now actually, they're all, by the way, producing about the same, which is kind of crazy. So they're producing relatively similar numbers. I'm surprised with because how much time Miller missed. And then the slow start that Elias had as well. So we had 28 points in 434 games for Elias Pettersson. That's a 0.82 points per game. And then you have JT Miller, 25 points in 28 games, and that's a 0.89 points per game. So, of course, JT Miller is producing a little higher. And there is, of course, the rumors. And so I'm not going to talk a ton about this, but supposedly before they were open to taking their, we'll see what's out there. And so basically there was kind of confirmed. Now it's absolutely confirmed. They're like, hey, we're taking calls on both of them. Let me know what your thoughts are. And so some of the key details here, JT Miller is only willing, he has a no movement clause. And so a full blown no movement clause, which means he can't be traded or waived or anything for the next 4 years, 3 years. He's got it until 26-27 season. So, he's not going to waive it unless it goes to New York Rangers, which I think they would love to do a deal with him and pick up a guy like JT Miller. I think that would help change the trajectory of this team because this team absolutely needs some help. You're talking about the Rangers, they absolutely need some help in this case. Rangers are currently, if you look at the Eastern Conference, they're third bottom in the Eastern Conference, just having a hell of a time, 3-7-0 in their last 10 and -10 goal differential. I mean, they're just not doing good. They just need a little bit of a heartbeat change. And if you can move off of I don't think you can move off of Zibanejad, but let's say you traded, I don't know what the assets would look like. Someone suggested Zibanejad and Lafreniere, which was, of course, you're gonna need a center back, right? So, because hey, you need a center back, and let's say you go with like I said, Lafreniere and a Zibanejad. You have to figure out the money and everything. But those are the types of things you're looking at, right? Not just a regular first round pick because JT Miller is high value, right? Same thing with Elias Pettersson. Look at his contract as well. He's got a no movement clause he has a no movement clause, but it doesn't start until July 1st this year, right? So he can be traded to anywhere. He has no protection at all, and so he can be moved to wherever. And so we know that Carolina had interest in him. Detroit has interest in him. I think LA should have interest in him. You have imagine having a Byfield, Elias Pettersson deal there, right? I mean, even New York should be interested in him as well. I don't know if he's the New York type in that case. I think Elias Pettersson's kind of like a quiet leader, similar to Quinn Hughes, a little more quiet. And so you need, I think New York maybe a little bit intense for the style that they want to play. I think you would thrive on, I think you thrive on Red Wings. Again, I'm a Red Wings fan, but the Swedish connection there would be huge. Mind you, Swedes play everywhere, but Red Wings have a huge Swedish history as well. So that's something I would consider. And so, I mean, let me know what your thoughts are on this, because where do you think they're going to end up? Because I'm kind of like, if I were Vancouver, I would rather, I know Miller is the guy. He's an amazing playoff producer. But I think this situation has gotten to a point where one of them has to move. And to me, depending on what the return is from the New York Rangers, I think you move off of, I think you probably end up moving, Rangers move like Keandre Miller, maybe not Lafreniere, Keandre Miller, let's say Zibanejad, or Trocheck. I mean, if you did like Keandre Miller, Trocheck, and a second, I think that might be good enough to pick up JT Miller. And the thing is, JT Miller has had some issues on multiple teams before. So that's where I feel I want good chemistry in the locker room. And it's starting to affect the everyone in the locker room, and that's a problem. So you got to cut out the bad egg. In this case, supposedly it is Miller. Just going based on the rumors. So I would rather cut the guy out who has had bad issues in the locker rooms, and then focus on the guy who is a similar age to your captain, Quinn Hughes, right? Elias Pettersson is 26 years old. Quinn Hughes is 25 years old. I mean, you want these guys to be together long term. So of course that's my mindset of what I would do. So let me know what your thoughts are on this. And by the way, like Elias Pettersson has this deal for the next 7 years, and then Quinn Hughes needs a new contract at 27. So you don't want to keep a toxic locker room until he's age 27. Sorry. So that'd be this year and then 2 years after. So you don't want to have a toxic locker room and then have Quinn Hughes leave you, right? You want to keep him around long term with with Elias Pettersson. That just makes a ton of sense to me. So let me know what your thoughts are on that. Of course, I'd really appreciate it. So let's just jump into a quick break, and then I will we'll hit up some more news. I'm excited about some news. There's a good chunk of news. We're gonna pay some bills. So I will see you guys in a couple minutes. It's the most wonderful time of the year for getting in on all the hoops, football, and hockey action at DraftKings Sportsbook. In the season of giving, we're being gifted college football and basketball, pro football and basketball, and pro hockey too, almost 24/7. And here's a gift for all new customers to bet $5 and get $100 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Listen, I'm a Red Wings fan. You can see by the hat that I'm wearing. But basically, I'm covering every NHL team. And if I'm looking at the odds right now, Red Wings are not looking that great to get the Stanley Cup. But maybe you're thinking, hey, maybe there's another team that you're looking at. Maybe you're a Columbus Blue Jackets fan, and you're like, man, Florida looks really good. Or maybe you're an Anaheim fan, and you're like, man, those Edmonton Oilers look really, really good. You can put your bets in at DraftKings, betting $5 and to get $100 or just bet $5 to get $100 in bonus bets if your bet wins. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $100 in bonus bets if your bet wins. When you bet just $5. Happy holidays from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boo Hill Casino and Resort, 21 plus, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/bball. You know that sound. That is the sound of ice skates hitting the ice at your favorite NHL team's rink. And listen, if you're looking to get tickets, you know that there's nothing better than going to see that live experience of hockey, just seeing the guys hit each other, the screams, the crowd, the chants. It's nothing's better than it. And if you're looking to get tickets, you know you got to go to Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes it getting tickets to see your favorite teams even easier live. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. If you're looking at some up and coming games, so like Detroit Red Wings, where I'm at, you get the Blue Jackets coming up on January 2nd. You can go a week ahead. You can go to the Blackhawks versus the Red Wings, right? You can go Kraken. You can do the Sharks. You can do any team. There's so many games. Maybe you're looking at, around the what's it called? Valentine's Day. Oh, well, that's the Four Nations, but you want to go right before Valentine's Day and you want to go to a game. Talk about Red Wings versus Lightning on February 8th. There's a ton of options here. And if you're looking, again, if you get tickets, you go to Game Time. They have super deals. You can see the seats before you buy, which is huge. You get to see actually what the view is on the ice. You can see what's happening. They also have an all-in pricing feature, which you can toggle, which shows the total upfront, so there's no surprise fees at checkout, as well as being able to save more on concert tickets, sports tickets, comedy, theater, whatever you're looking for. As well as Game Time also has the most flexible customer service policy, as well as event cancellation protection, and job loss protection as well. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. And we're back. So we're going to talk about a little bit more news. Let's talk about the Red Wings real quick, because I'm a huge Red Wings fan. I just want to kind of spout off about them, how excited I am about them. So since Todd McLellan took over the team, they are 4-1. So mind you, Derek Lalonde was fired on relieved his duties on December 26th, the day after Christmas. And so Todd McLellan did a conference, right? Had one morning practice with them on Friday, and then they played the Leafs. They ended up losing 5-2 to the Leafs. Understandably, Todd McLellan is just like, hey, we're going to go and play your game and go from there. And he did some line shuffling a little bit. He left them as they were and then did throughout the game. And I mean, they're fine. They're fine. Against the Capitals, they ended up winning 4-2, which is crazy because it's one of the top teams in the league right now. I think at the time they were top points. They're definitely one of them, the Jets and everything. So speaking of Jets, I'm forewarning you, by the way. Then they go New Year's Eve on December 31st. They have 4-2 win against the Penguins. I mean, this is great. This is phenomenal. You love seeing this. And Penguins are a team that they are fighting in the standings for a wild card spot. And then, of course, you have on January 2nd, you had a 5-4 win against the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are absolutely fighting that same spot with the Penguins, who actually, crazy enough, Penguins and Columbus on January 5th. Both have 40 points in 40 games. They have the same record, 17 wins, 17 losses, and 6 overtime losses, which is crazy, which is awesome. And then the Jets, Red Wings end up beating the Jets at an away game. So at the Jets Arena, they beat them. Guess what? 4-2, which is amazing. So, and the Jets are sitting first in the league, or the second in the league. The Vegas Golden Knights have taken over them. They have 56 points in 41 games. And so I like it. It's very exciting. They're versing the Senators on Tuesday. Currently, Ullmark is out week to week with a lower body or back injury. So, not that we wish injury on anybody, but you have Senators on Tuesday. You have the Blackhawks on Friday. You have the Kraken on Sunday. How are the Kraken doing? Kraken have 37 points in 40 games. Red Wings have 38 points in 39 games. So that's similar competition at this point. You have the San Jose Sharks on Tuesday, who are not doing great, but they're a ton of fun. You have the Panthers. So you have a good 4 games in a row you can actually absolutely win. And then you have the Panthers and the Lightning and then the Stars. So, but this is a team that absolutely can fight for the playoff spot. I looked at moneypuck.com. They're in like 11+% of making the playoffs, which isn't crazy. It's not nothing, but it's not something. It is something at least. So we'll see how it ends up working out for them. Going on to talk a little bit more news and notes. The Bruins, who picked up Mark Kastelic in the trade for the Ullmark deal, funny enough, they signed him to a 3-year deal at $1.567 million per year. So going to the Boston Bruins page over here, let's check out how Mr. Kastelic is doing these days. So it's a $4.7 million deal over 3 years. Again, going up to 1.566 for the next deal. Currently has 11 points in 40 games. Mind you, he's playing like a 4th line center position at this point. So A good little deal for this 25-year-old. He finds a spot in the lineup, and he's very well liked. He's actually has 11 points in 39 games, so he's, again, well liked. Clearly they wanted him to. I didn't know who he was until he got traded from the Ottawa Senators to the Boston Bruins. It seems like he's just really popping up, and a lot of people really like him. And it seems like the Bruins really like him too because they want to keep him around for the next 3 years. So good for him. That's great little news. You love seeing guys get paid, and he's good for the next 3 years, man. So we're going to a major trade from the Boston Bruins and the Penguins. Colton Poolman for Bennett MacArthur. Two guys that I'm unfamiliar with. So let's go check out who these guys are. I do know Poolman is a not there's Tucker Poolman. I wonder if it's his brother. So looks like it's probably just it's just two AHLers. In this case, you get so it looks like the Penguins are acquiring so they have Colton Poolman as a D man. The Penguins are acquiring. Bennett MacArthur is a left winger, 23 years old, that the Sabres acquire. So Sabres are getting a younger player at 23, and then the Penguins are getting an older player at 29. Looks like Bennett MacArthur, who the Sabres got originally undrafted, had some time with the Lightning and everything. Currently playing the ECHL, 7 points in 28 games, so not killing it, especially for a left winger. You'd like to see more out of him. And then with the 29-year-old Colton Poolman, again, another undrafted guy, again, signed with the Buffalo Sabres. I don't think he's any other NHL contracts. Looks like he was in the AHL for the Calgary Wranglers, and then currently was playing in the AHL with the Rochester Americans. So in 5 games, he had 1 point. So it looks like they're getting some depth, maybe just helping their lower teams out. Again, Buffalo gets a guy in Colton, and then Penguins get a guy again who's been in the AHL. It looks like a career AHL guy. Doesn't hurt, doesn't help. It's just a lower stuff. So it's not going to help the big clubs out, but it is a trade. So I did want to talk about it because I just love trades. So Philippe Meyers, again, talking about good extensions like we were talking about before. The Maple Leafs signed Philippe Meyers to a 2-year deal worth $850,000 per year. And I think that's really interesting. So I would say Philippe Meyers just started getting back in the lineup. He was a healthy scratch for a ton of games recently. But again, he finds his way into a contract, right? Originally undrafted. I know he was part of 2 major trades, by the way. And if you don't follow Steve Dangle, he has talked a ton about this, and he's actually had a lot of time in the NHL. He's played in the NHL every season since 2018, 2019. Starting with the Philadelphia Flyers, played 21 games and 50 games with the Flyers the next year, 44 the next year, 27 with the Predators, 11 with the Tampa Bay Lightning, 5 with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and now 12 with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So again, he's getting some time in there. And this guy, again, he has NHL talent, or he's playing in the NHL, right? And the thing is, I want to talk about him because it's so funny. He was actually a part of 2 huge trades, okay? So there's the original, so I'm going to go for the, not most recent one, but we'll go with the oldest one. So originally, when the Flyers acquired Ryan Ellis, again, who's gone on LTIR and been on LTIR for a long time. So Flyers acquired Ryan Ellis, and the Predators get Nolan Patrick, a 2nd overall pick, and then Philippe Meyers. So it just shows you how good he was back then, which is crazy. And then as well as the Ryan McDonagh trade when he was originally traded from the Tampa Bay Lightning to the Nashville Predators. And then again, Tampa Bay gets back Grant Mishmash and Philippe Meyers. I remember that trade, which is crazy. And I was like, oh, Philippe Meyers. I have no idea who this guy is. And I heard that the Marlies had signed him. And now, of course, the Leafs signed him as well, giving him an extension for the next 2 years. And to me, this is good insurance. He's a right-handed defenseman. He's playing with Morgan Riley. And the reason I think, so the Leafs, and there's these teams that are good teams. And the Leafs, again, we're talking about earlier with a contract that who just got, Frank Vatrano just got. I think it's smart for clubs who have money to be able to properly structure these contracts so that they can keep the players. And so what you're seeing with Philippe Meyers, so we saw this with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He was paid. They signed Matt Murray to $750,000 with a $100,000 signing bonus. So what they did is they waived him and they sent him down to the minors, which is, so he's not a minor league player, right? He was paid $750,000 is the minimum you could get paid. And then they threw a $100,000 signing bonus on there, so that if anyone wanted to waive him, they had to pay the signing bonus, which is smart. That way they're keeping the goalie, because if you put in a waiver claim for a minimum player, you can just waive him again. But if you don't want to pay the extra $100,000 that goes in your cap, well, it's like, well, then don't claim him. And that's what they do, that insurance, right? So Philippe Meyers, you're giving him a little bit higher. It's $850,000, which is higher than the minimum, which I think is now $775,000. $850,000 is signed for this year, but not only this or this next year, it's also for the year after as well, right? So you have to be willing to take on that contract for an extra year, or you have to buy it out, or you have to waive them, or you have to do something with this, right? Like these do go in the books, and so these are real dollars being taken, and your owner's not gonna be like, well, why did you pick up this guy who's almost $1 million a year? Or, for next year, he's going to be $2 million. So if he gets waived again, he's less likely to get waived because now you have to pick up this contract and everything. So I imagine since they gave him this contract, I imagine they'll end up waiving him soon. And this is kind of an insurance thing. So I think very smart by the Toronto Maple Leafs. I could just tell you that someone may be coming back, right? That could be Yanni Hakupa. That could be whoever, right? But it could be someone coming back into the lineup. So we will see if, like I said, he ends up being the one, ends up being waived or ends up coming back. So move on to the next bit of news. We did Frank Vatrano. Stars make a sign as well. Again, similar to what we're seeing with the Philippe Meyers. You get Oskar Back, who signed a 2-year contract worth $825 million, 8 years, right? Again, two-year contract. He's 24 years old, 1 goal, 9 points in 31 games with the Dallas Stars. So he's in the lineup, right? He's a guy that's in the lineup. Again, you can sign up for a cheap contract. And again, it's a little bit of insurance, right? You're like, hey, man, he might have a higher upside. So let's sign up for not just 1 year. Let's sign up for 2 more years and see how this ends up working out. So we're looking at his profile and everything. He's a left winger, 24 years old. Maybe he pops off a little bit extra. But again, he's a guy. He's a good guy. Again, this is another team that is a good team like the Dallas Stars, looking to keep a guy for long term, right? When you see other teams like San Jose has to pay guys a little bit extra, maybe a little extra year or a little extra money because they have the cap space, because they're usually not cap strapped teams. They do that to incentivize guys to play on bad teams. When you have guys who want to be on good teams like Oskar Back, Philippe Meyers, they're willing to take the lower cap hit typically if they can get some years on there, or if they don't have to spend too much money because they want to play on good teams. They want to have a chance at the cup. They want a chance at the playoffs and everything. And if you go far in the playoffs, you also get the bonuses there. So that is also incentive to give them less money now. So good for them. Stars making a smart move and everything. So we'll see how that one works out long term. Again, we're seeing this again. Just the Colorado Avalanche signed Keaton Middleton to a 2-year contract at $775,000, which is interesting that they only did $775,000. This guy is waiver claimable again, but again, you'll have to pick up a guy for not just the next year, but the year after as well. But again, this guy is a little bit less of a surefire thing, I'd say. 26 years old, left side D, 0 points in 12 games with the Avalanche, a former 4th round pick for the Leafs. So, but again, you give him that extra year just in case someone wants to pick him up. You got to take the extra year. So they definitely want to keep him around, but he's not a have to have. So, moving on to, I think we talked about this a little bit as well. Oh, actually, no, we already talked about Jonathan Toews, didn't we? Actually, we'll start with the last bit of news. I mean, we'll wrap this up early. We'll get a quick news and notes videos done. Rod Brind'Amour, this is back a couple days ago at this point, probably over a week ago now. Rod Brind'Amour becomes the fastest coach in the NHL to 300 wins in NHL history, doing so in 488 games. So he beats out a ton of guys. He passes Bruce Boudreau, who held the record originally after winning 300 wins in 496 games. These are the only two in history to reach 300 career wins in less than 500 career games. That's phenomenal. I love that. I mean, he's definitely going to be in the Hall of Fame at some point. He had a great career, but he's having an even better coaching career at this point. I mean, he's lighting it up. So love to see that for Rod the Bod. Again, I think they're going to keep him around for a while because, he's well liked. He played for the organization. And he's a highly desirable coach. I know there's lots to talk about when he was in contract negotiations with Carolina and Goodell, I think his name is. I forget the owner's name. Either way, there's a huge debate on whether he'd be open, and a lot of teams were looking and sniffing around to pick him up and everything. So we will see what happens. But again, he's a very winning coach, and that putting that on his resume is not a bad thing as well. So, anyways, hit like, subscribe. I really appreciate you guys hanging out. A little shorter video today, a little short podcast, but I love you guys. You're great. You're so beautiful. If you're listening to audio, you can't see me. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. I love you. Anyways, I love you. See you next time, and catch you next one. Peace.